A guy could get used to this 3 hour, 5 match card that the WWE seems to want to have all their B level pay per views. I love it. It's an easy watch. Doesn't necessarily mean that the show is good, but it makes for an easy watch. You get in, you get out. Which brings us to WWE Presents Clash at the Castle in Glasgow, Scotland. 11,391 fans showed up and paid a whole lot of money for this, from what I understand. They paid a whole lot of money to see Drew get screwed over. I'm kind of surprised that in the 24 hours since the show ended, that there was some backlash, no pun intended, to some of the results of the show. It's almost like people didn't see that WWE just told you up front, here's how the show is going to go. Here are all the winners. None of the match outcomes surprised me. But let's get into the show. We start off with an intro. You got Drew talking over it. They're building him up. Look, WWE, there's nobody who does intro and promo packages like them. They are the king. They always have been the king. And everyone else is just fighting for second place. But the first match on this card is for the undisputed WWE Championship, AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes, Part 2. AJ Styles, I still don't like his theme music. It still sucks. It doesn't fit him. One of these days, when AJ gets in the ring, he kind of does his little thing where he runs into the ropes. He's going to run into it, and it's just not going to bounce the right way, and he's going to fall down. I'm just waiting for it. Cody comes out next. No pyro, which automatically tells me that this is a glorified house show. In fact, there was no pyro throughout the night. And when Cody does his whole whoa and there's no pyro, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right at all. But hey, Scotland, that's what all that money gets you. No pyro. But the crowd is still into it. They're singing his theme. They don't really know it all that well, or they just kind of know the highlights. But it doesn't matter. They start chanting when the match starts. I can't really make it out. That's good. They've got some buzz in the air. They're not nearly as obnoxious as the crowd in Lyon, France, but they're gonna make some noise throughout the night. So it starts off with a lot of back and forth offense until they get kind of taken out to the outside. They pull out a table. They kind of set it up, but then Cody throws AJ into the ring steps. And then they take the fight out into the audience for a bit and then into the backstage. Cody's kind of playing to the crowd a lot before they get back there, but the looks like, after a little bit, they end up in the gorilla position and then they end up kind of back out in the aisleway. I was just waiting for one of them to hit like a chord or the wrong button while being backstage. I don't know. I guess I like chaos, but anyway, they get back into the arena. Cody puts AJ into a figure four in the center of the ring. The ref asks if he quits. And it's at this point that I immediately think back to the Bret Hart Bob Backlund I Quit match with Roddy Piper as the referee. I think that was WrestleMania 11. I could be wrong on that, but I remember hating this match. I remember hating how many times Roddy Piper would just stop the momentum of the match, not that it had a whole lot of momentum, and just keep asking, do you quit? Do you quit? And here it wasn't that obnoxious. It's just the ref stops and, asks if he quits. And Cody at different times through the match just says 5 or 6 different ways of saying no. And he says no here. So AJ reverses a suplex attempt, and then they both kind of fall over the rope to the outside. AJ dumps Cody on the announce table. Then he gives him a brain buster on the table. And then the ref asks if Cody quits, and he says no again. Then AJ kind of gets into a shouting match with Cody's mother, who's sitting ringside. And then Cody is somehow busted open, but it doesn't really look all that right. But at least we have blood. AJ with a little bit more offense, and then the ref asks if Cody quits, and Cody says absolutely not. And then he asks Cody again, and then he says no. AJ is kind of prompting the ref to ask these questions, and it just once again, it stops the momentum of the match. I can't stand I quit matches. They just, all of the things that a wrestler would supposedly quit on in a regular match would never happen. So why do we expect it to happen here? It's like, hey, I just put you in this really excruciating submission hold, and then I let go, and then I told the referee to ask you the question, why would I quit now? I'm not in the hold anymore. Or I just gave you a suplex. Or I just hit you with a belt. Hey, ref, ask him if he quits. He wouldn't have quit in a regular match, so why would he quit here? It just, yeah, it really drags the match down. But anyway, Cody fights back. He gets cut off with AJ's immaculate looking drop kick. Back to the outside, the crowd starts to say, fuck you, AJ. AJ goes for a style clash on the ring steps, but he gets reversed by a back body drop by Cody. Then they get back in the ring, and then Cody gets a disaster kick on AJ, and then Styles ends up getting control again, and then he reverses across Rhodes and gives Cody a Pele kick. Cody says no to the referee again. AJ goes to go get a chair. The crowd is disappointed because they want tables, as always. I'm not sure what is the fascination with tables nowadays. I know that they are, I guess the Dudley Boys still live on in the hearts and minds of everyone. But I mean, I love tables like anyone else, but I just don't need them in every match. But anyhow, AJ places Cody's head inside of the chair. He jumps on the chair to kind of, which looked terrible. I always hate that spot. I just always cringe a little bit that something is going to go wrong one day. But referee asks Cody if he quits. He says no. Then AJ decides to go grab a kendo stick, and he hits him in the stomach and the leg and the back. And I'm just waiting for Cody to like Hulk up or something, because he's done that before. But he then says hell no to quitting. Then the crowd goes back to their Cody chants to kind of get him hyped up. AJ gets a belt. He starts to whip Cody over and over again. Then he tries. This part's funny. He tries to choke Cody, but the belt won't stay around his face. And it just keeps slipping off. And the crowd notices this, and they tell AJ that he fucked up, which AJ eventually just quits trying. I love it. Then he gives the FTF. AJ gives an STF to Cody, and he passes out. But of course, he can't say anything if he passes out, so AJ has to kind of wake him up again. So he grabs a water bottle from the outside, and then he dumps it on Cody's face, and he throws the bottle at him, telling him to wake up. And then he goes back outside, and he finds a bag, which I think the crowd and most people watching thought it might be thumbtacks. But nope, it's just handcuffs. So the crowd's disappointed. And quite frankly, I'm not disappointed. I don't need to see thumbtacks anymore. I've seen enough between AEW. And also, WWE did them a few times back in the day. It was rare, usually in a Mick Foley match. I remember the match he had with Randy Orton. I don't need to see thumbtacks. To me, it's overused. And it just... I don't know if it adds anything more to a match at this point. Maybe it's just I'm old. I don't know. But he gets the handcuffs. He handcuffs Cody's arms behind his back. Then he unloads on him with the kendo stick, and Cody still won't quit. AJ goes outside to, well, actually he didn't go outside. He shouts at Cody's mom again, and then he did go outside. I'm sorry. I forgot he did go outside at this point. And then he puts her hands on her, and then she slaps him. Cody's mom slaps AJ a few more times, and then AJ kind of goes back into the ring. He hits Cody with a chair. Then he wraps his chain, which was also in the little bag, around his arm, and then he goes for a phenomenal forearm. And at this point, it almost looked kind of cartoonish. Cody throws the chair at him, which knocks AJ off the rope, off the ring, and into the table that was set up earlier. So it was a good spot. It looked funny the way it all went down, but it was a great spot. Cody finds the key to the handcuffs because, of course, which was also in the bag, and he frees himself. Cody hits AJ with the handcuffs, and he gets him with the Cody cutter, and the crowd is getting pretty hype at this point. Crossroads to AJ, then he hits a second one, and then the crowd asks for one more, and then he hits another one onto the chair. Cody then handcuffs AJ to the ropes, and then he hits him repeatedly with the chair. The ref asks AJ if he quits, and he says, "Screw you, Cody." Then Cody takes the steel steps from the outside, and he throws him into the ring. And then he lifts him up, and at this point, AJ is in the corner, still handcuffed to the ropes. And as Cody lifts the steel steps up, AJ says, No, I quit. And then that's it. The match ends. Very abrupt ending. I did not like this ending. I didn't like it at all. Cody still has the steps at this point. He looks over at his mom, and his mom kind of nods to go ahead and do AJ in, and he does. He smashes AJ with the steel steps anyway. So much for quitting. It's still got smashed anyway. But I didn't like this ending. I thought that AJ could have tried to escape, tried to fight Cody off. I just think for someone like AJ Styles, look, this is the second match here, and I keep hearing rumors that they want to do a third. I have no idea how you could do a third match after this. AJ looked cowardly in quitting that quickly. I mean, it didn't work for me as a finish. I think that this is the inherent problem with an I Quit match, is that there are so many aspects to it that either kill the momentum or just aren't believable when it comes to the way characters interact with one another. And more often than not, the I Quit match ends with some sort of shenanigans, and this was no different. So this ending really spoiled what was otherwise a pretty decent match. So I'm going to give this 3 stars out of 5. There's part of me that really wants to give it 2, but there's something else on the card that gets that, and this match was not a 2 out of 5. Just that ending really soured me on everything here. But yeah, 3 stars out of 5. It was a solid match. I don't need to see these two wrestle again. I just don't. I am not a fan of repeat matches at pay-per-views. That's been going on for years, so I don't want to act like that's just a product of this era, but I don't want to see that. I don't need to see these guys wrestle again. Get Cody a real meaningful feud. And by meaningful, I'm talking about a feud that doesn't just mean, hey, you got the title, I want it, so now all of a sudden I hate you. That doesn't feel like a meaningful feud. But what does feel like a meaningful feud, which we'll get to here, Cody is on the outside, he's celebrating, and then Solo Sikoa meets him in the aisleway from behind, and Cody notices him, and as he's distracted, he gets jumped by the rest of the bloodline. Then Randy Orton and Kevin Owens come out and make the save, and I'm guessing that this is going to be your match for Money in the Bank, 3-on-3, the bloodline versus Cody, Randy, and Kevin. But the real interesting thing about this part was Randy Orton eyeballing that title. And that, to me, is the guy who can give Cody Rhodes a meaningful feud, at least before all this Rock stuff starts up again. Because there's a lot of history there. And so I hope somehow, some way, we start to build to that. Because post-WrestleMania, Cody has had 2 pay-per-view matches with AJ Styles, 1 with Logan Paul, and none of them have meant anything. It's just random matches. I now more than ever believe Dave Meltzer's report that they didn't have anything planned for Cody post-WrestleMania. They're just spinning their wheels until they get to the whole Bloodline Rock stuff. But Randy Orton can be a really good, meaningful feud. And I hope that they're setting that up for SummerSlam. But the rumors are that it's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa, and I want no parts of that. I take a lot of issue with the way that they're booking this Bloodline 2.0, because to me, the bloodline needed to be booked as true monsters. And right now they're just trying to tell you that they're monsters. And they're allowing Paul Heyman and his facial expressions to try to give off that vibe. But I don't get that vibe at all. Right now it just seems like one former lackey of Roman Reigns and two of his buddies trying to put on this air of that we're bad, that we are to be feared, and that the bloodline is stronger than ever. Nobody cares. It's just, or at least I should say, not enough people care. They need to be running over everyone so that when the eventual match does happen between them and Roman's old bloodline, which also really doesn't make any sense, because why would Jey Uso ever want to join the old bloodline again? Why would he ever want to team back up with Roman? This is the same guy who abused you and manipulated you for months, years. So he's going to team back up with Roman because Roman lost leadership of the bloodline? Why would he want to do that? I can understand making good with his brother. I mean, that's your brother. But I can't understand him getting back with the old bloodline to take on the new bloodline. Both in kayfabe and in real life, the Jey Uso character has moved past that. I don't necessarily care for him in the ring, but I can't deny the fact that he's extremely over. So why would he want to be a part of this again? I don't know. But anyway, that's to come. We're going to have a 3-on-3. Cody, KO, Orton versus the Bloodline 2.0. But like I said, 3 stars out of 5. All right. Next match on the card for the Women's Tag Team Championship. You've got champions Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defending against Zoey Stark, Shayna Baszler, who's a makeshift tag team, but they're, I guess, at least trying. They're giving them matching outfits, so that's something. And then you've got the actual real tag team, the only real tag team in this match, Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn. They need a tag team name, though. Like, I don't know, Donna Fire or something like that. It's Fire in the Dawn. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not good at tag team names, but they need one. They're an actual tag team. Why not? I hate when tag teams are just the individual names. Can't stand that. You know, Bret Hart and the Anvil with a Hart Foundation. That's makes sense. I don't know. Anyhow, the crowd reaction for Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn when they came out, I thought was kind of tepid, which is not surprising because you can't. So often, I think that organizations think, hey, if we just trot out the hometown wrestler, they'll get this massive pop. Not if you haven't done anything with them. I mean, I've been to wrestling events where the hometown guy comes out for like the last match. It's a dark match, or maybe it's one in the beginning, and they don't get much of a pop because that guy or girl hasn't been booked properly. So in some ways, I kind of think it's insulting when WWE or any organization thinks, hey, we'll put you on the card because we're in your hometown or country and you'll get the pop that you probably won't get anywhere else. This pop wasn't all that much. Thankfully for them, they were able to kind of slowly but surely get the crowd on their side as this match wore on. But it's just sad because they're a legit tag team and they're pretty good. But they were just thrown in without a whole lot of build. And, you know, look, Stark and Baszler, they got no reaction. Which, getting no reaction for a European crowd says a whole lot. It says exactly just how poorly you've been handled by WWE. And you know what? Bianca and Jade, despite the fact that they're the big stars in this match, I don't necessarily thought they got a great reaction either. It says perhaps a whole lot about just this match and the no build to it that preceded it. But anyway, here we are. We don't get the special intros that they do for title matches with this, which just shows you how much they care. But Bianca early on gets a 10-punch count on Baszler in the corner, and you can see her just turning around like repeatedly. She's waiting on this spot. She's waiting on, I believe, Isla Dawn, or maybe it was Alba Fyre. She's waiting for her to come over to so that they can do a spot. So I'm like, look, this match is already rough. It's just the thing about these women's tag team matches is that there's just no flow, and everything looks really rigid, and it doesn't look fluid. And it just looks like a bunch of people who are waiting for certain things to set up. And it just ends up looking bad. And I just thought that this match was really bad from start to finish. But anyway, Jade eventually gets tagged in, and her and Fyre, or I should say, after, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Jade gets tagged in, and Fyre and Stark go after her, but Jade overpowers both of them. And at this point, they look like jobbers. But the crowd seems to be behind Bianca and Jade, at least at this point. Bianca and Jade do double vertical suplexes. The crowd loves it. And then the teams kind of regroup on the outside, and they decide to team up against Bianca and Jade. So Belair gets beat down in the ring, and then Jade kind of gets beat down on the outside. And then all of this is kind of working well until Zoey Stark decides to break up the alliance, and then she hits Isla Dawn. Fyre comes in, and the crowd starts to get behind them a little bit. She gets some offense in on both Stark and Baszler. And at this point, Bianca and Jade are kind of off the set, which is good, because now the match turns into more of a traditional tag match between Zoey Stark, Baszler, and then Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn. And so they're able to kind of get into more of a rhythm. And I thought that this was the actual strong point of the match. Unfortunately, that all ended when Jade got tagged in, and she botched a springboard attempt off the rope. Now, I am not one of these people that is rooting for Jade Cargill to fail. She needs to succeed in order to make that match with Bianca that everyone's looking forward to actually be good or mean something. Look, I am not necessarily looking forward to Jade versus Bianca. I don't think that Jade, no matter how good she gets, can have that kind of match where you're sitting back and saying, this was worth it. Like, for years, I was looking forward to the rematch between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair because I knew both of them were just at the peak of their prowess, so to speak. They were great in the ring. They had proven to have good matches with various people. And so when they got together, it's not a surprise to me that they had one of the greatest women's matches, I think, in recent memory. I don't think Bianca and Jade can have that. I don't think Jade is going to get to that point where she can have that kind of match. Bianca has proven it before. But Bianca in this tag division scene is being dragged down. Not necessarily by Jade, but just by being in it. She's better as a singles wrestler. But Jade, despite the fact that I'm rooting for Jade to succeed, people in the back, whoever's producing these matches, need to understand Jade needs to learn the fundamentals first, which means no high spots. She can do power moves, but she doesn't need to be jumping off ropes. It just doesn't make any sense. She's not a high flyer, so she doesn't need to be getting in the ring like that. She's not Rey Mysterio. So I hope she never tries this spot again, but I know they're going to have her do it again. She did recover nicely. She got up, she started throwing blows, but Shayna then gets Jade Cargill in the Cure Feudal Clutch, and it looks like she tapped out. But the ref is on the other side, so the ref can't see it. But it looks like Jade Cargill tapped out. I'm hoping that that was intended as far as us seeing that. But I really hope that wasn't a botch. I hope that that tap is going to lead to some story between her and Bianca. But at this point, While she's still in the clutch, Bianca gets on the top rope. She does a 450 splash on Shayna, which breaks up the clutch. The problem here is that Bianca went a little too far, and so her knees end up hitting Shayna more so than her body. And like I said, it just added to what was already a rough match. But Bianca and Jade, mercifully, we're getting to the end of this match. Bianca and Jade get their finisher, which I do love their finisher. It's very creative. But in the chaos, Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn took advantage. Dawn comes in and suplexes Jade out of the way, and they steal the pin, and they become your new women's tag team champions. I was not surprised by this at all. I did not think Triple H would book every single Scot to lose on this show. And as I was looking at the card, I said, which one of these makes sense? Which one of these would not really affect storyline all that much? With Bayley and Piper, you know that they're not going to do Piper versus Nia Jax at SummerSlam. They would never do something like that. And they also want to do right by Bayley and give her a decent length to her reign. And then with Drew and Damian, you knew the minute that the bloodline was banned from ringside for Drew's match that something else was going to happen. If you've watched wrestling long enough, that is essentially a red herring. You knew something else, and that something else would be Punk. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but you just knew that that was going to happen. So that left only one logical choice. And having Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn win the tag titles doesn't prevent the story between Jade and Bianca from taking place. Especially since they can easily win those tag titles back. But here's what I would ask of WWE. Do not allow Jade and Bianca to win those tag titles back immediately. Let Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn at least have a month with those titles. Let them defend the belts a few times. Build them up before you inevitably take those titles away. You need stars in your women's division, both in the tag division and the singles. Because what happens is you get caught like you did earlier, where you have someone like Rhea Ripley who goes down and Charlotte Flair is out and Becky's taking time off. And so you were left with a situation where you didn't have anyone that you thought you could put that belt on. So you put it on Becky as a stopgap, and now you've got it on Liv. And Liv right now is in probably the most significant storyline of her life. And it has very little to do with the belt. But that belt is going to benefit from being in this storyline with Liv. And that's the problem with the divisions, the women's division, both tag and single. Everyone thinks you need a belt. No, you do not. You need good storylines. You need good matches. The wrestler makes the belt. The belt doesn't make the wrestler. It's always been that way. Always. Everyone asking for a mid-card women's title, no. There doesn't need to be a mid-card women's title. Not until they prove that they can create storylines, compelling storylines for the women that don't involve the title. Then, when you do that, then you can bring in a mid-card belt. But you look at the tag titles, they've been defended now on 2 different pay-per-views this year. Probably more than that, but 2 different pay-per-views. Not because of the belts, but because who's holding them. So let Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn show just how good they can be with those belts. Let them have solid matches. There are enough women in that division who can have a solid match with them. Let them defend it. Let them hold on to it for at least a month. If you want Bianca and Jade to win it back at Money in the Bank, so be it. Ideally, I wouldn't even mind if they held it on until SummerSlam. Maybe you start the build up to Jade and Bianca slowly in showing that they have to overcome adversity. I think it could work. But anyhow, the crowd loves it. I loved it for them as well. If you heard the news, I believe it was Alba Fyre who unfortunately lost her mom to an accident a few weeks ago. And so it was a very emotional moment for her to be able to do this in front of her fans and her country. And so I'm glad Triple H gave them that moment. This does nothing. This doesn't hurt anything for Bianca and Jade. It allows them to get a really great moment in front of their fans. And, hopefully, obviously, this does nothing for her grief over the loss of her mother. But I hope that this moment was something that she'll truly look at and just as a positive, as just something that she can hold her head up high over in a month that had just one of the greatest tragedies anyone could ever experience. It's just I can't imagine going through that. I don't. Yeah, I feel bad for her. I don't want to act like I know her or anything like that, but I feel bad to lose your mom in that way. So, but with all that said, it's kind of a rough transition here. But with all that said, this was a terrible match. It was not fluid. It wasn't smooth. Botches, not just with Jade, but just rough. And I don't know what it is about the women on the main roster. They have infinitely better matches in NXT, not just now, but over the years. For some reason, they can put together great matches in NXT, but when they get to the main roster, it just doesn't carry. I don't know. But I give this 2 stars out of 5, and I think I'm being generous by giving it 2 stars. I said earlier that I didn't necessarily want to see another AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes match. I'm already at the point where I don't necessarily want to see another Sami Zayn Chad Gable match, yet here we are. And I know that these two can have a 4 or 5 star match in their sleep, but at some point, I just don't want to see the same people wrestling each other over and over again. It doesn't work for me. I know I'm in the minority on that, but here we go. Sami and Zayn, Chad Gable, round 40. Crowd is chanting something early on in this match. I have no idea what it is, but there's an early spot. Sami takes Gable's head. He sends him flying over the top rope, kind of battle royal style. I hate this spot. I hate it in battle royals, and I hate it in a regular match. It just doesn't look right. Why on earth would I run and allow you to take my head and then jump over the rope? It makes no sense. But there's a lot of standing around and kind of pandering to the crowd. It's a slow start. Sami rolls to the outside next to Otis and Maxine. They kind of stare for a little bit. Then he gets back in the ring, and he and Gable slap each other a little bit. And then this eventually transitions into Gable getting an ankle lock on. Gable then works over Sami's arm. He eventually goes outside, and he tells Otis, hey, don't focus on the crowd. Just focus on the match. Focus on me. Sami's eventually turns the tide, and he's fighting one-handed. He's, the effects of the damage to his arm. Sami gets a rope-assisted moonsault on Gable on the outside. Then the crowd is starting to kind of get into this, and then Gable drop kicks Sami's attempt off the top rope, and then he gives a Michinoku driver on Sami that gets a 2 count. You got a powerbomb by Gable, then a flying headbutt that also gets a 2 count. And then later on, after a ridiculous amount of reversals, Sami gets a kind of a spike suplex on Gable, and that gets a 2 count. Chad landed right on his head. I don't know if I should say that looked good or that didn't look good, but it looked good. Like it looked very believable. Like, hey, he did get spiked. Cable. I'm up here thinking of X-Men. Gable eventually gets momentum. He gets a crossface on Sami, and then Sami reverses it and gets a crossface of his own. Chad reverses it, and then he gets an ankle lock again. Gable goes outside to grab the title, and he gives it to Maxine to hold on to it. And at this point, Sami's kind of hanging over the rope, and Maxine looks like she's going to hit Sami, but she pulls back. And Chad Gable is angry and tells Maxine to get on the apron. And at this point, they're both in the corner, and Chad's back is turned. He's still berating Maxine. Sami runs over to give a haluva kick, but he stops the last minute because Gable moves out of the way and he almost hits Maxine. This allows Chad Gable to capitalize and hit the Chaos Theory, which gets a 2 count. Maxine then tells Gable that she's sorry, but Gable is not having it, and he's kind of stalking her around the ring. And then Otis gets in between them, and there's a long stare down and you can tell that they're just setting up a spot. Once again, I hate sometimes how these things play out. Like there's got to be a way to execute this in such a way where it just doesn't look so choreographed. But they're staring each other down, and you can tell that they're waiting for Sami to get to his spot, and he does. He somersaults over the rope. Gable moves out of the way. He ends up hitting Otis. And then Gable gets on the top rope and he moonsaults onto Sami to the outside. Actually hits both Sami and Otis. Then he tries to do it again in the ring, but he misses, and then Sami gets an exploder on him. And then Chad Gable gets momentum, and he gets another ankle lock on Sami on the outside. And at this point, Sami then reverses the ankle lock, and it sends Gable rolling into Maxine's hurt leg. And Otis is pissed. It's a great shot. Once again, WWE production values off the charts. Excellent shot. Gable runs back into the ring. Otis looks like he's going to level Sami, who's on the outside, kind of laid out a little bit. But Maxine says no, tells Otis not to do it. And then Otis and Maxine walk out on Chad Gable. And this, of course, pisses off Gable. And during the distraction, Sami gives the haluva kick. And then he pins him 1, 2, 3. Sami Zayn retains the Intercontinental Championship. I think I forgot to say that this was for the Intercontinental Championship, but whatever. The match itself was fine. I think I've seen better from them, but the storytelling was fantastic. It was the star of the show. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. 4 stars out of 5. The storytelling carried this match. The match itself, they've done better. But the storytelling with Otis and will he or won't he, and even Maxine, she played her part very well. And Chad Gable is he's amazing. He really knows how to forget just wrestling in the ring. His facial expressions are just amazing. Especially the one he gave Sami after the match. He looked like he was ready to kill somebody. I wish Chad Gable was just a little bit larger. I think they would take him far more seriously. But right now, he lost again. I don't know where we go with this. It seems like now his feud needs to be with Otis and bringing in, people have said bringing in the Creed brothers and who else was it? I think, oh gosh, it was one of the girls. I forgot her name, but they're going to bring them in and be the new Alpha Academy to essentially destroy the old Alpha Academy, or at least feud with Otis and Tozawa and Maxine. To me, that's where this needs to go for Chad Gable. I don't want to see him going after the Intercontinental title for a long while. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of. Someone might say, look, this is playing a part in the long-term storytelling. Okay, do that without having a match for the Intercontinental title every month. You could do a lot of this and he doesn't have to have a title shot. It dilutes everything about this, because if he keeps losing, then how are you going to take him seriously when he gets another title shot? It just becomes predictable. Like this match, I didn't think he was going to win. I don't think you thought he was going to win either. But yeah, that's where we're at. It's anyway, at this point, we get an interview backstage with the new tag team champions, Alba, Fyre, Isla. Obviously, they're very emotional. I found it funny that one of them said that they plan on holding the titles for a long while. And you know what? I hope so. As I said earlier, I hope that they're able to have a meaningful reign with those belts. But WWE right now has shown that they don't really want a true tag team division. So I fear that they're going to lose them. And I would not be surprised if they lost them as soon as this week or next week. Or actually, I'm filming this week. So yeah, this week. I would not be surprised, which is unfortunate. Remember how I said earlier that just because you put someone in their hometown or home country, that doesn't automatically mean they're going to get a big pop, a big reaction. And here we are. Piper Niven versus Bayley for the WWE Women's Championship. Piper Niven comes out. I mean, her reaction was okay. Nothing out of this world. Piper Niven should be a star and a force in this division. They could book her like Nia Jax, but for some reason they refuse to do that. And she could have easily have been someone who legitimately could be a threat to the title at this point. So you knew you were coming here earlier in the year. You knew you were coming to Scotland. Why not start building up Piper Niven months before? No, instead they just said, oh, here's a few weeks till we got, well, it was only 3 weeks ago that they were at Backlash. So here in between now and Clash at the Castle, we'll just kind of throw a nothing feud for Bayley and give her Piper Niven. She's barely on television. And she, once again, much like Alba, Fyre, and Isla, she's pretty good. She's pretty good, especially if you've seen her work outside of WWE. She's great. But look, Piper didn't get much of a reaction. Neither did Bayley. Partially because, and it's Bayley's birthday too, as they mentioned. But look, Bayley hasn't been booked very well. Much like Cody, no real meaningful feuds post WrestleMania. And then also Bayley as a good guy or as a face, I just don't think she ever found herself as a face. A lot of people say she needs to go back to the hugger gimmick. I disagree. I just don't. I think that was a gimmick that made for a good introduction to Bayley, but as far as something long lasting, she's better as a heel. The problem is she was a heel for 5 years, and I don't think they really allowed her to hit her peaks. They gave her damage control, but they also made damage control a bunch of jobbers, which then we were supposed to believe they were a threat when they turned on Bayley, and then you had Io Sky as the champ. But at that point, Io Sky had not defended the belt against anyone. She herself didn't have any meaningful feuds. She had not proven to be some world beater. And so when Bayley had to go against Io Sky, it's not like anyone thought that she was going to have this uphill climb in trying to get the belt. That's the problem with having a storyline like that. If you're going to have Io Sky and Damage Control be this faction that Bayley has to overcome, you actually have to do something with them first to make you believe that they're truly going to be a difficult out for Bayley. But they weren't. And Bayley got the title. And there's no one to really feud with her. So I guess, look, if this pay-per-view was being held anywhere else, does anyone even think that Bayley would be defending the belt? Once again, Piper Niven is on this card because they're in Scotland. So, anyhow, here we are. I don't know. This really just bothers me. I want so badly for them to book the women's division better on both sides. Even when Rhea Ripley had the title, she never really defended it. She was busy with Judgment Day, handling their business. She wasn't necessarily a great champion. She's just a great character. She didn't need that belt. But anyway, here we are. So early on, Bayley gets thrown outside. Chelsea Green slaps Bayley. At this point, Bayley kind of tells the ref, get Chelsea out of there. And then after Chelsea kind of gets on the apron and grabs the ref throws out Chelsea Green. And I don't know. I found all this funny. Like, what did Chelsea expect at this point? But anyway, Piper takes control, sends Bayley to the outside. Piper does this kind of flying senton barrel roll off the ring apron onto Bayley. Then she does a running senton on Bayley in the ring. Then there's a lot of stalling, and Piper is kind of playing the heel roll initially, but then the crowd starts to root for her, which is good. I'm glad that the crowd actually realized, like, oh wait, it's Piper. She's from here. We should maybe start rooting for her. Anyway, suplex by Piper gets a 2 count. Another suplex is then reversed by Bayley into a rolling suplex, and then a suicide dive by Bayley onto Piper onto the outside. Piper then drives her into the ring. Bayley back inside the ring gets an elbow drop onto Piper, who's kind of dangling over the middle rope, and then Bayley gets a rolling senton and then another elbow drop, and all of that for a 2 count. Piper then gains control briefly before Bayley gets Bayley to belly off from Piper off the second rope. And then at this point, Chelsea Green comes back with I guess a Rey Mysterio luchador mask, and Bayley then takes her out off the apron. Piper reverses a Rose Plant, turns it into a Michinoku driver, gets a 2 count. Then Piper goes to the second rope, but then she runs into some knees from she tries to some offense onto Bayley, but she runs into Bayley's knees. Piper then gets a Bossman slam on Bayley on the outside, and the crowd is starting to get a little bit more hype for Piper. Back in the ring, Piper misses a senton, and then Bayley gets this kind of crucifix driver pin. I don't know what that's called, and then that's it. She got the pin. 1, 2, 3. Crowd kind of seemed deflated. I thought that was a sudden end for the match. This was okay. This was nothing special. It was look, it was a lot cleaner than the women's tag match. I'll give them that, which it should be. Look, Bayley and Piper are both very good in the ring, and so the match, like, I have to give it higher than the women's tag match, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was a great match. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. This, once again, it was okay. Nothing special, but okay. And now for our main event. The World Wrestling Federation. I'm kidding. Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest for the world title. Drew gets a nice reaction. It wasn't as loud or sustained as I was expecting. And then they had this little decibel meter, which, quite frankly, I didn't believe what they were showing. I also feel like the best crowd reactions are the ones where you don't have to beg for a reaction. And there was way too much begging from Drew here. But the fans do give him the old Drew McIntyre chant, and they get a little bit more into it as he's going and asking for their for their cheers. But yeah, I just think that the best crowd reaction is you don't have to beg for it. It's kind of like a concert, like any kind of musical concert. You see the talent up there asking for the fans to cheer or wave their hands or get hyped. No, to me, if you are that guy or that girl, you don't have to beg for any of that. The crowd will give you what you deserve or how they genuinely feel. If you have to manufacture cheers, then something is wrong. But still, he got a nice reaction. Priest comes out with his shitty theme music, gets booed. Boy, his music. We can do better, WWE. We can do better. And so there's a funny spot here during Samantha Irvin's intros. Drew stands in front of Priest, blocking him from the hard camera side, and I got a good laugh at that. Probably my highlight of the night so far. This pay-per-view has been just kind of so far. But early on, there's clotheslines, and Priest is sent to the outside. Drew flies over the rope and lands on Priest. Priest regains control inside the ring briefly before Drew gets a spine buster on Priest for a 2 count. Priest gets a flatliner on Drew and then a running shoulder charge and a suplex, and then all of that was for a 2 count. Then more back and forth offense of slaps and punches. Once again, another spot that I can do without. I'm so tired of the spot where both wrestlers just stand there and take slaps or punches from each other. It just looks dumb. It just looks totally stupid. And usually that's saved for towards the end, but even then, it's just dumb. Drew gets a Michinoku driver, which, how many times is that move going to be used in this pay-per-view? Or, sorry, premium live event? Way too many times has that move been used. I think, like, what, 3 or 4 maybe 4 out of 5 matches used that move? I'd have to go back and look, but that's just ridiculous. But anyway, it gets a 2 count. Priest avoids a future shock DDT and he goes outside. Drew throws Priest into the prime hydration cart, which I can't stand. I don't like the whole Logan Paul Prime sponsorship stuff. It looks so out of place. But anyhow, Drew is kind of pandering to the crowd a little bit, and then at this point, Priest is back in the ring. Drew is on the outside. Priest goes for a dive, but unfortunately his leg gets tangled up in the ropes. And it looks awful. His ankle looks like it's twisted, and you kind of wonder, like I've seen people say, like, well, was that planned? Hell no, that wasn't planned. Does it look planned? The margin for error to plan a spot like that is, I mean, come on. Was it planned? But what they did from here was some of the best wrestling, and by wrestling, I mean the art form of wrestling. Taking a negative and turning it into a positive. And learning how to work with each other, communicating with each other, both the wrestlers and the referee, and having to improvise right there on the spot. Look, you could tell that Drew wasn't quite sure of how to proceed. He didn't know if Priest was actually legit injured, but as soon as he played it off really well. He told the referee, look, I can't pin him if he's in the ropes. So he had to help him out. And you could tell at this point that the ref and Drew and Priest were all kind of communicating with each other. They were trying to make it look like they were yelling at each other, but they were communicating with each other as to what to do, how to proceed. Priest at some point must have told both of them, hey, I'm okay. Or I'm okay enough to finish this match. And so at that point, they got right back on track. But Priest was selling his leg the rest of the way. And it made for a much more dramatic match. It was just a great showing of two professionals, two guys who know what they're doing, and a referee also. I want to give him credit. But anyway, Priest gets a one-legged razor's edge for a 2 count, and they slug it out a little bit on their knees. And I'm starting to think maybe they skipped some spots. Maybe they decided like let's go home, or at least let's push towards the finish. But no, there was more to go. We get a Glasgow kiss from Drew, and then several spin kicks from Priest. At this point, that kind of tells me that either Priest is running on adrenaline, or he actually is okay. He may be actually a little bit injured, but he's okay. He's doing spin kicks. I think he can put some pressure down on that ankle. But we get a neck breaker from Drew, and at this point, both men are down. Drew gets in the corner, sets up for the Claymore. Priest rolls to the outside, but then Drew goes on the outside, gives him a Claymore through the barricade. Drew drags Priest back into the ring, goes for the Claymore, but then it's reversed into a South of Heaven chokeslam, but a kick out by Drew at 2. And the crowd at this point is chanting, "This is awesome." And for once, I agree with the crowd. They did a great job with this match. Priest sets up Drew on the top rope, slaps him a few times, gives him a hurricanrana. I don't think I ever expected to see Priest give a hurricanrana, which I apparently can't say correctly. Hurricanrana. There we go. But then Drew immediately gets up, almost like a no-sell, and then he Claymore kicks Priest. But Priest kicks out at 2. Then at this point, I really like the spot. So Drew and Priest are kind of struggling, and they are about to run into the referee. The referee dives out of the way to the outside. Thank you, referee, for being smart for a change and not just standing there and taking what is obviously coming towards you. But then, as the referee is trying to get back into the ring, a Claymore from Drew sends Priest into the ref, and then the ref is bumped off the apron to the outside. He hits the barricade, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's a lot more believable than just standing in the corner and taking a ref bump. So the ref is out on the outside. Now we've got no referee. The Claymore was hit on Priest. Drew is like laying on his back on Priest. And then we get WWE just being, once again, a master at their craft when it comes to production. You see a wide shot where someone is running down to the ring. You can't tell who they are. And then you get the angle of the person sliding into the ring, but from the back. So we're looking at the person who has a referee outfit on. And the ref counts 1. The ref counts 2. And look, can we tell? Look, do we know that it's CM Punk? Of course we do. But for those who may not be in the know, the way they shot this was brilliant. So the ref counts 1, the ref counts 2, and then he stops. Drew, at this point, who can't see the ref, looks up and sees that it's CM Punk. And CM Punk is giving Drew what I've come to understand is the equivalent of a fuck you over in Europe. I thought it was just giving him like a 2 count, but he was holding up 2 fingers, and I've been told that means fuck you over in Europe. Whereas we use our middle finger over here in the States, they use 2 fingers. And I guess that's what it was. Drew gets up, starts to choke Punk, and then choke, and then CM Punk kicks him in the balls and just kind of throws him down. And so at this point, Punk gets out of the ring. Priest has recovered, gives Drew a South of Heaven chokeslam for the 3 count. I absolutely loved this finish. I knew CM Punk was going to interfere the minute that they said that the Judgment Day was banned. That when Drew won the match on, I believe, Raw this past week, and they said Judgment Day is banned, I said, oh, WWE. I guess for little kids, they might think like, hey, that means it's going to be a fair fight. No, it just means that somebody else who's not a part of the Judgment Day is going to interfere. And that somebody else you had to know would be CM Punk. I thought this was a great finish. The way they shot it was great. It just, this feud between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre is, to me, one of the, hopefully they are able to pay this off with a match that people are talking about, just, or begging to, I don't, it's hard to describe this because they can't really touch each other all that much. They haven't been able to really get physical because Punk's been injured. And yet they have found a way to keep this feud hot to the point where I don't know if there's another feud going on in WWE where I think people are ready to see a match more than this one. And it's been through promos, which goes to show you, if you know how to cut a promo, you can have feuds that are far more impactful sometimes than people who get into brawls every week. But these two have just done some of the most amazing work feuding with one another for the last, 5 months, 6 months since the Royal Rumble. It's great. And so the crowd was, man, if that decibel meter, they need to somehow measure a crowd reaction like that. I don't know how you would do it, but that crowd went silent. That crowd was pissed. And I don't blame them. The kind of money that they paid, they wanted to see Drew win. And you could tell that some of them believed that he was going to win. I guess there's some gullible people out there. I don't know. But they were flipping off CM Punk. Although CM Punk had some fans. And he was interacting with them. But yeah, and I saw the aftermath. The WWE posted on social media. CM Punk apparently was in the back watching the match. And he gets with one of the referees in the back. I think it was Jessica. And he asks her for a referee outfit. And she just happens to have a spare. And she gives it to him and he runs out. And I was just like, they set this up brilliantly. And then they also showed Drew McIntyre in the aftermath. He's going after Corey Graves and Michael Cole. And he's just angry. And he's telling everyone that the Americans don't understand. And Wade Barrett, who was really angry with CM Punk on commentary, by the way, he understands and he sympathizes with Drew and as they're walking back down the aisleway. But this is just excellent. And it makes for what should be a really interesting Monday Night Raw because you've got this storyline going on. You've got the Liv Morgan Dominic story going on. Judgment Day stuff with Finn and the key card, and you got Damian Priest, who may or may not be legit injured. I don't know. I hope that there's no segment where Priest has to come out and forfeit the title because at that point I'm just gonna be like, man, Judgment Day is cursed. Dominic's injured, Rhea's injured, Priest injured. That faction is cursed, but I hope he's okay. I do. I hope he's okay, but. You know, as I said in the beginning, I love how these B-level pay-per-views are only 3 hours. I do wish they would put in a little bit more effort into them. I mean, I think like 3 out of these 5 matches we've seen before and recently. And I don't know. Well, 2 out of 5, I think. Yeah, 2 out of 5 of these we've seen. But, you know, no pyro, which is big for me. Pyro, to me, I've always loved it. I hated that time where WWE stopped using pyro to save money. Look, it's a spectacle. It's a show. You want to put your best foot forward, especially in a place like Scotland where you're not exactly having a show every other week. So to me, if I'm someone who paid big money to go see a show, I want to see everything you got. Even as a viewer watching at home, it just doesn't look right when when you're not putting your best foot forward. And I think that WWE has kind of found a nice formula for these shows, but I don't necessarily think that has always served the show well. It just serves their pockets really well. But overall, I didn't even say what I thought of the match as far as Drew and Damian. As far as I'm gonna give this, I'm giving it 5 out of 5. It had solid wrestling. It had great storytelling. It had a fantastic finish, and it had a hot crowd. That's all you can really ask for. The botch with Priest actually added to the match. So 5 out of 5. Look, the show overall was okay. It was solid. Certainly not a bad show. But it's just one where you just kind of sit back and you say, like, is this how it's going to be for any pay-per-view that's not WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, or Money in the Bank? Because we can't consider Survivor Series one of the big shows anymore. It hasn't been a big show in years. So it just feels like this is what we're going to get. And just because the show is supposedly a B-level show doesn't mean you have to give C-level effort. And that's what I kind of feel like this was. It was slightly above average, but not enough to where I would give it a B. Maybe like a C+. But yeah, next up is Money in the Bank. I'm expecting a whole lot more from that than what we got here. But still, look, 3 hours, 5 matches, only really one truly bad match on the card. And just like with Backlash, it was the women's tag team title match. Jade's got to improve. But then they also have to stop putting her in situations where she's trying to do springboards off the top rope. She should be learning her ground game more so than anything else. And she still doesn't have that down right either. So, but I'm not going to sit here and say that she was the only reason why that match was bad. Nobody in that ring looked smooth. So, I hope that they're able to build from this on all fronts and that they keep those belts on Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn. As for Cody, I don't know. I think this is going to be an open month. Like I said, he's going to be in that 6-man tag that they'll probably do at Money in the Bank. And what this does is it gets them further into the year without Cody having to start up another nothing feud. So he'll be back with the bloodline again, but at 6-man tag, he doesn't have to defend the belt. They don't have to generate somebody to feud with him. So it's an easy out for him. As far as Damian Priest, I don't know where we go from here with him. It seems like everything surrounding Priest is the Judgment Day. The title is an afterthought. So I actually can't wait for someone to get that title off of him, because they have not put him in any real feud. I mean, they put him with Jey Uso, which was, again, another example of, you have the title, so now all of a sudden I hate you. It wasn't a truly meaningful feud. So, like I said, I hope he's not hurt, but I hope they get that title off of him. And Bayley, I would not be surprised if she's not defending that belt at Money in the Bank. They're going to wait until they get to SummerSlam where her and Nia Jax can go at it. And I pray that Nia Jax wins that match. To me, there's a lot more that you can do with Nia Jax as the champion than you can with Bayley. Unless they are willing to pull the trigger and turn Naomi heel. There has been a segment where Naomi has been eyeballing that belt. And as I said last month, I did not like her hugging it out with Bayley and being okay with losing the match. So if they're willing to turn Naomi heel, then at that point, I do want Bayley to keep the belt until she has to go against Naomi, because that can actually be a solid feud that has been built up for months with little clues here and there that, hey, maybe Naomi is not as nice or as friendly as she puts on. So we'll see how that goes. But those are my thoughts on WWE's Clash at the Castle. Like I said, solid show. Nothing special. But definitely looking forward to Raw, which is something I usually don't say. So I guess they're doing something right. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and catch you in the next video.